Well, I see it's about 1 o'clock, so I'll get started. Welcome to everyone. This is Door County Reads 2022 Festival. My name's Laura Kayakon. I'm Adult Services Librarian here in Sturgeon Bay. Today we'll be discussing Michael Perry's book, Truck, A Love Story. Although if you've read any of his others, please pop in and mention those too. Before we begin, I want to mention that I turned on the closed captioning. If you want to see the closed captions, there's a little toggle at the bottom of your screen, and you can either turn them on or turn them off. This program will touch on varying points of view, and we thank you for being open to hearing other people's opinions and participating in intellectual freedom in a respectful manner. Here's Adele coming back in. Be sure to check out some of the other Door County Reads events at doorcountyreads.org. I especially would recommend, there's one coming up that I think will be really fun. It's a Badger Talk by a university professor from Madison on linguistics in Wisconsin. And you all know we have a variety of language styles around the state. And apparently, I didn't watch Saturday Night Live, but apparently they were making fun, or they were addressing Appleton accents last week.
Oh yeah.
I thought they sounded, saw an excerpt and I thought it was more like Charlie Burns in Manitowoc, but that's what they had on Saturday Night Live. So if you want to hear Joe Solomon's the speaker, that one's coming up. I don't have the date quickly in my mind, but it's very soon. It's and then there's some more play readings. There was a play reading last night. There'll be some more. And as I say, if you go to doorcountyreads.org, you should be able to see the full list of programs and access the Zoom links there. Everything's on Zoom this year, except for the play readings. They get to choose what they want to do for their presentations. And I see Kagan has joined us. She will be doing a program coming up on the 9th called Won't You Be My Neighbor? So be sure to catch some of those programs. Now, I quickly want to just mention about Michael Perry that I was not too in love with him at the beginning, but after watching the movie Where I Come From, I really began to understand a lot more about his writing. He talks about his childhood and the schools he went to and his experiences. And then at first I thought Truck would be fun to talk about, so I put that down as our choice. But many of you have read his other books, including Population 485. And I see Adele's still having trouble getting in. If you have anything to mention from the other books, let us know. Someone in another program mentioned that the book Coop is a lot about his parents, and I started reading that one, and I think so far that's my favorite one. So before we get really discussing it, I made a quick PowerPoint of some things that caught my attention. So let me share my screen and show you what I found interesting. Here's the book cover. I always love to compare book covers. And I always go to WorldCat Identities, which is it's a big, huge international database of books, and Identities does data on all of different authors and books. And so far, you know, Michael Perry's only been translated into English or written in English. Some of the other books you'll read will be in many languages, a variety of covers, depending on what country they're published in. But Michael Perry is a good old English writer, English language writer. So those are the covers that I found. This is interesting also. This is some of the way they break it down in the topics that are in his books.
Yeah.
And you can recognize right away some of them, but Wisconsin is prominent there. Farmers, manners. I think kind of fun to see it. I'd recommend going to World Cat Identities and looking things up. Then I found on his blog something about his truck, which we all know is the subject of his book. That's a before picture of the actual truck, and then an after picture. Apparently, a local group took some films of it. So that's what the actual truck looks like in real life. And then I was sort of fascinated by this whole thing about Irma Harding that he focuses on. And there's a lot of websites out there that talk about Irma Harding, and you can buy some of the old mementos from her time. But what I really find fun is that she came to Door County, and she was at an event in Forestville. So there you have it. We had her. So that's all I have to say. I hope you all have some opinions you want to share. And how did you like the book? Oh, if you do have too much back noise, please mute yourself temporarily. But go ahead and how did everyone like the book? Do you like his sense of humor?
No.
Do you like his memoir writing style? What does everyone think of that?
Well, I'll jump in there and say, at one point in the book, I felt like
Are
I
you
was
guys leaving?
somebody.
Lunch.
Say again?
I felt like I was just talking to, like the way he would change subjects suddenly, you'd be talking about this and then he'd move over to this. It's kind of like when there's a group of people together and you start talking and the subject matter goes all over. So even though he jumped around a lot, it was like people were talking to each other, sharing a conversation. I thought that much. Yes, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I found his style interesting in that I read a couple of the books I started on Coupon. I tend to blend all the stories together in my head, and I can't remember which.
We bailed you out, so.
Whoops. Let me mute that so we don't get too much back noise. You can always unmute yourself, but if there's someone in the background talking or something, please turn that off for temporarily so we can hear everybody in the group. So what was I saying? That I found that a lot of the stories sort of are similar, so I was getting confused trying to remember which book I read which story in, although he does have a focus. It's interesting that the two books, Population 485 and Truck, both end in weddings. So I think he tries to be very positive. And he has also written books on how to write. Here comes Ruth. Has anyone else read any of his other books? Has anyone read Coop or Population 485?
I read 485.
I also did 485, yes.
There's a but.
I'm
Go
sorry,
on.
go ahead. I was just going to say, I found Truck to be a little rambling and hard to follow. I think that conversational style that Jean mentioned, absolutely right. But I was like, come on, buddy, like get to it, I felt it was a little overlong, and that's just my opinion about most books. So maybe I shouldn't say anything.
No, I kind of agreed with you. Anyone else?
Well, I was going to say the parts in Truck that were about trucks, like transmissions and gears, I found myself kind of, we'll go right past that and get to some other things, because that was addressed to a different audience than me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody must like that.
It was very high world, very boy to me.
Yeah.
But, he knew a lot, so that was interesting.
We're gonna have to pull her. Remember that? We're
Yeah.
gonna have to pull her. That you could just hear somebody saying that.
And walk it off. I'm like, yeah.
I thought that was a great line. Walk it off.
Yeah. Every guy I've ever.
Did you like the parts about the gardening and the love story and what else? Small town life. Those are all different themes in the book. Anyone identify with that, Wisconsin small town characters? Trissa, you're muted.
Unmute.
Can't see everybody.
Let's see.
I think that he's quintessential Wisconsin. I think that all those themes, the truck, the way he talks, the rambling, the way he's involved with his neighbors is what he is. I think he's amazing. And I went into this thinking this was a poor choice for Door County Reads. I was wrong. I really think that this was a very good choice.
Oh, thank you.
He's reflective of what we are, what Wisconsin is. And to me, he gets it. And one of the ways when he explains things, he gets it. And one of the ways that he does is when he describes at the chicken feed that they're doing as a fundraiser, the importance of an Enesco roaster.
Yeah.
That just did it for me. I mean, I agree that he was rambling. I agree that that when he talked about the mechanics and the fine tuning of the truck, that I found myself turning forward. But this is the second or third discussion I've been to of this book, and having listened to what other people have said about that, it only reinforces how I think that he's really an amazing author and an amazing person. I think his insights are incredible. And I too have the problem that Laura's having about where did I read this or where did I find this out about him? Because if you saw the video that Laura showed last Thursday, you have a whole new insight into him. He talked about his family and he talked about his parents. They were incredible people. His childhood was incredible.
And that video is called Where I Come From. And it's available as a DVD through InfoSoup, the library catalog, or on public TV.
And I highly suggest you all watch it, because I think if you had any misgivings about him, well, I've reread it since Thursday because I had misgivings about it.
I agree. I think he came over as very down to earth in that video with some really good information. I'm kind of interested in who his parents were. Hi, Ruth. You have something to say?
Yes, but about the business of the truck, it's really just a framing device that enables him to move along with his story. Each chapter covers something about the truck, but it also does something about the girlfriend or otherwise that moves his story along. The gardening is tucked into there in the middle of that. And I have seen that kind of framing used before. I recently read Brood, which a woman wrote who got a set of backyard chickens. And she uses her year with the chickens as a way to frame the story. And the story's not really about the chickens, but she learned a lot about life from the chickens and during that year. I don't know if any of the rest of you have read Brood, but I would recommend it.
What's the name of the author? Do you remember?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I have to look it up in my list of books, but it's really easy. The title is Brood.
I'll look that one up. And he did write the book Coop, which is about his chickens.
Yes.
Has anyone there raised chickens?
No, but I have a friend who just started raising chickens last year, and I feel like it's kind of changed her life. I mean, or it had way more impact than she ever thought it would.
And my brother started raising chickens, and it seems to be a very popular thing here in Wisconsin, doesn't it? I walk my dog past a chicken coop every day here in Sturgeon Bay. So that's the new thing, chickens. But you're right. I think you have a good point about framing. So
I don't know how to take my hand down. Maybe I can figure that out. Can you knock my hand out? Good.
There you go. Does anyone else have any observations you want to share?
Well, I hate to keep saying things, but anyway, one of the things that struck me with Truck was I began to feel similarities to Garrison Keeler's Lake Wobegon.
Mhm.
I thought to myself, okay, that's kind of in the same feel, that kind of thing. So I wrote that down in my notes, Lake Wobegon.
I think you have a good point there. What about the whole, he doesn't only have traditional Wisconsin life like farming and chickens and repairing old trucks, but he also talks about living off the grid and yoga and more new age type things.
Just living off the.
What do you think about that?
He's incredible.
Oh. Yeah,
Foes.
yeah.
Did you want to say something, Jim?
No,
Or you just,
He was clarifying something for me.
okay.
I was
Um,
impressed how eclectic he was. I mean, he does everything. He's a nurse, he's an EMT, he's a firefighter, he's a writer, he's a poor gardener, which I can relate to. He's a mechanic. I mean, he really does everything. He's a Renaissance man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
And
agree
if you
with that.
watch the video, Laura, what's the name of it? Where I came from, who I am?
Where I
You'll get
came
an
from.
explanation why he does all those things. His father taught him that his father chooses to be a farmer, which is that's interesting unto itself. But his father tells him that you need 3 things in life to make it. You need the cows, the sheep, hopefully pay the taxes, and then you need something you really like, which is the lumber that his father makes. And that's one of the things that Perry talks about in this video, how he is a Renaissance man, but he's a Renaissance man out of necessity, out of what he's been taught. He has to do all these things in order to pay the bills, be responsible. And he is very responsible.
Yeah, he even mentions health insurance and all those everyday things that we all have to face, which was kind of interesting.
I have a comment.
Yeah.
I read both books several years ago, and I was going to reread them, but down in Tallahassee, our library here did not have them. So they both kind of blend together. I liked both of them, but talking about him being a Renaissance man, he also plays in a band that he is the lead in a band called the Long Beds. I saw him when he was playing down in Algoma one night at their weekly event. In fact, Arlen was with me. And he also is the moderator up at Big Top Chautauqua. And he's there every night. And he's also a commentator on Tent Radio, which I think is NPR. And I think it's either Saturday night or Sunday night.
Mm-hmm.
So he's doing a little bit of everything.
Yeah, and he has a newspaper column too, I think. How You Doing or something, the name of the other video. There's going to be a showing of the second video, How You Doing, I think this afternoon later. If you're interested, everyone can join in. But that's more little snippets from his programs.
His column is carried in the Wisconsin State Journal. I think it runs once a week. And I've often thought that from those essays he draws for his books. So sometimes when you think you've already read some of his stuff or heard it, it's probably because you might have caught the column somewhere. And that would be a year or two in advance of when it shows up as part of a book. One of the things I wanted to comment on that I think is apropos of all his different endeavors, he had a phrase about how he's constantly living life triage, that he's always having to do what he has to do right now and putting off something for another day. And I was thinking how my life is like that. I'm retired. I'm elderly. I'm still living my life like Triash.
That's right.
A lot of us do.
Yeah.
I also like the way he said that he's not a leader, but he likes to chip in and get things done and be part of a group.
Mhm.
That was pretty interesting because so many people today want to be in control, leaders. So I really like that about him too. Do you think his like he's been on the New York Times bestseller list? How does he how do people outside of the Midwest read him, do you think? What do they think? Is he kind of like,
I
yeah.
heard a YouTube that he did. And he, in fact, he has several YouTube speeches, don't stand behind a sneezing cow, and, several other ones that are very humorous. And he's, I don't know, well, anyway, if you go to YouTube and watch them, they're very interesting.
Evidently in Florida, though, they don't read him, Linda, right?
Well, they had a couple of his books at the library, but not Trucker,
Yeah.
485.
Yeah.
I think they had Coop.
I didn't find any of his books. I just bought it.
Yeah.
Well,
I
if you
would
have,
hope, I would hope that people outside of the Midwest find him to be what I find him to be, which is genuine. Everything that he talks about is genuine and is of importance to him. And it comes across that way to me.
Mhm.
I would hope that's the way other people would find him.
I did search his books, as I say, on WorldCat, and it turns out Kentucky has a book club programs, I think the state library, and one of them is focused on coop. So I guess they really identify with the chicken farming part of it. But as I said, his books have not been translated into other languages. So he is really representing our area. And was it in Truck where he talks about going out to New York and the fancy restaurant?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what do you think of, where did he actually work when he left home? He traveled quite a bit from what I understand. He said after school, he traveled all over Europe and everything, right? Does anyone know where he lived before he came back to New Auburn? It's really hard finding.
I thought it was
information about
California
him.
for a while, but I don't remember for sure.
Yeah. I tried to do a genealogy sort of thing with him, and you can pull up all the old yearbooks on Ancestry, but I couldn't find all that much about him or his family. So that's why when someone mentioned that Coop talks about his parents more, because I'm kind of interested. Apparently they're in some religious group that's fairly small. Does anyone know about that? And
He made a comment in one of his YouTubes that they were fundamentalist, or
Yeah.
somewhere I read that they were a fundamentalist group. But then when he talks about where he came from, he talks about them taking in all these handicapped kids as foster kids. So
lots of them, yeah, lots
Yeah.
of them. And was it the young girl in one of the books that had the heart trouble, or was that just
the
the
Down
video?
syndrome girl that passed away,
Yeah,
but that the dad quit his job just to help take care of her.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
pretty incredible, isn't it?
Yeah.
When you think about it. So I'm just curious what group they're in, because I did hear that it was a small group. And of course, in Wisconsin, we have a lot of these different sects, like the Amish and central
German-
Wisconsin over there,
German
right?
Baptist too.
Yeah, there's a lot of different ones. So I was wondering if, exactly more about that background.
He didn't say which group, but he did mention fundamental, and the way he talked about it, it didn't seem like he was still involved in that group, that
Yeah.
he did
No.
not follow.
No, I don't think so.
He does say specifically that he broke away from it, but that, they all respect each other's opinions, apparently. So, And his brothers are farmers. At least one is a farmer, right?
Yes.
And one of us does lumber. He mentions that. I don't remember which book. So what do you think about, he moved then to his wife's family's property, didn't he? From the sound of it in the book, right?
Oh, I haven't got that far yet.
Yeah, they had a little more space that way. It sounded like
house.
it sounded like his place was pretty compact.
Yeah, because he was living in town back in New Auburn, right?
Mhm.
But he also said in that video that Trissa mentioned that he was, if anyone's interested, Public Radio did a talk with him on the two videos, the one, How You Doing, and also Where I Come From. And they talked about how they made those videos for public TV. And he said that he was driving his mother-in-law's tractor all over the place, and it was not International Harvester. So I thought that was funny. But has anyone ever had something like that truck that you really cared about, even though it was kind of old and run down and you wanted to fix it up? Or do you know anyone like that? Or is that more of a,
My bro-
That's a question for Jim.
Yeah. No, I'm not going to reveal anything. He can reveal his own, but
yeah,
a car is always a second, third, fourth, or fifth child, depending on how many we have.
yeah.
In my view.
And the gardening thing was interesting because he did, here's Adele trying to come, poor Adele, her connection must not be good today. He keeps talking about what a bad gardener he is. And here I am, has anyone gotten seeds from our seed library here in Door County? Or Door County seed, yeah.
I don't have any light. I don't garden.
Yeah, I keep trying because I'm on the group committee and I keep trying, but I'm a terrible gardener. But I sure identify with how he likes to plant things inside and watch them coming up and the slowness.
Between the lack of light and the squirrels, I don't have a chance.
Yeah. And he
Might go to
doesn't
the
like
orchard
squirrels.
across the street.
Yeah. He doesn't seem to like squirrels very much.
No,
I mean, he hunts them, but I love the squirrels. I'm on the side of his neighbor who feeds the squirrels. But what do you think about the whole hunting thing?
It's
I
part
think
of his life.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it gave insight into that point of view, and he certainly only kills things that he can eat. I mean,
except the squirrels.
yeah. So I think it gave a really good view of his position on hunting.
Mm.
I appreciated it.
And the fact that he does all of the processing himself. Hunting's a big thing around here, and a lot of people just bring it to a company and have it done, I know. But it's a good perspective on Wisconsin, and also I think I agree with you,
Yeah.
even though I don't like hunting myself.
Right.
Has anyone read any of his other books? Any of the fiction books? Any comments on that?
No, I don't even know what they are.
One of the titles is The Jesus Cow.
Yeah, I was curious about that one. I
Yeah.
haven't read it yet.
I didn't get very far along, but he does make up characters very much like the characters he knows in real life. And again, the same little communities, little rural Wisconsin towns and characters. So he has a young adult novel too that's sort of dystopian I have not read that one. And by the way, for you who are in Florida, if you have a Door County Library card, many of his books are in Hoopla, the digital app. So you can check them out that way. You don't have to buy them or go to, not find them in the libraries. So
Okay.
how did you like his Annalisa? Did you think they were gonna fit together well?
Yeah.
I liked it when she told him that she wouldn't make his bars for the firehouse
Yeah.
fundraiser.
Right.
That was his job.
I liked that one, and I liked he was gardening or something, and what's her little girl's name? Anne
Amy?
came and sat on his lap and he said he was falling in love twice.
Yeah, that was
Mhm.
good.
I think she could handle him.
Yeah,
He struck me as a guy that needed to be handled a little bit, you know?
yeah. And she seems independent enough to have her interests and to pursue them. It sounds like she's a teacher. Was she teaching literature? Was that it? Plus yoga, plus other things. So she
Right.
sounds like a pretty interesting person. So I have some quotes here. Annalisa says, "We are what we are because of what was." What does she mean by that? And does anyone feel that way and wish they could change the past? He seemed to regret, or he was always hesitant about their relationship because they both had histories. And I have a feeling that's sort of what he's talking about, or she's talking about. Does anyone have a comment on that? Everyone's so quiet today. Well, is it better to meet someone when you're 18 or better to meet someone when you're 40, in your late 30s, 40?
I love to wait.
To wait? Looks,
Oops, we lost.
It's not getting picked up.
you can't hear?
Mm-mm. Lost her sound.
Yeah.
Well, that's odd. I guess this is Wisconsin for you and rural Wisconsin internet. It's so uneven, right? If I know that, look at poor Adele has been in and out many times. Let's hope someday they get that straightened out. So were you going to say something about the age?
Well, I think that
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, there we go. Try again, Jane.
Am I on?
Yes, yes, now we
Yes.
can hear you.
Oh, okay, very
You
good.
have to repeat everything you said, though.
Sorry about that. Regarding his relationship with Annalisa, I thought it was just so tender in the way the relationship was developing, knowing that they both had histories, and yet he was almost like a little boy, just rediscovering love and rediscovering what it meant to be in love and have someone love him unconditionally.
And that was so interesting how he went to Colorado and
Yeah.
was able to carry on that relationship. I don't know that everyone could handle that,
Right.
but probably that's where age comes in.
I don't remember that.
Oh, yeah.
The father of the little girl he went and visited.
Right.
Mhm.
Well, I couldn't tell if it was the father of the little girl or Annalisa's father.
No, it was her.
it was Amy's father,
It was Anne's father?
Amy's.
Amy.
Yeah.
Oh,
And then, so they always say they have two daughters, Amy, and then another child, right? Who was born
Correct.
from their marriage.
Who lives with the dad. Mhm.
No, they were just visiting Colorado.
the other child, doesn't the other child live with the dad? I thought.
I think Michael Perry is the father of one of them. They had a child together, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Yes, they did. He has two children, Amy, who he considers his daughter, who someone was saying that she found their Annalise and Perry's courtship, whatever, tender and entangling and enchanting. And part of the enchantment has been mentioned that when someone mentioned that when he says he was falling in love twice,
Mhm.
they were meant to be. And you're in reference to your question about whether you're 18 or you're 40, I don't think it really matters. I think when it happens and it's meant to be, you know it is. And I think they were meant to be. And someone said he needed to be handled. I think she needed to be handled as much as he did. I think they're very independent people who were meant to be and are very lucky to be with each other. And they foster each other. I think they were meant to be. The fact that he considers Amy his child, the fact that he went to Colorado and spent time with Amy's father, that's an unusual thing. But then he refers to all of the children that his parents took in as his siblings,
Yeah.
not just his brothers who were his biological siblings. He's a very unusual, genuine human being.
He seems very deep and humane. Especially toward the end of Truck, I finally got in the groove of his writing, and the way he talks about the wedding and his relationship, I thought were far outshone anything in the previous 250 pages. I thought that last part because he was really telling the truth as he thought, and he has a perception that was really nice to see.
There's a lovely quote about love not being finite, and that
Right.
you always have more room for more love for somebody else.
Oh,
Yeah.
So it really gives us a good feeling to read these books these days when there's so much negativity out there in the world. That's one thing I think we were hoping to achieve by choosing him as an author. And for anyone who's not aware of it, he will be speaking to us on the 5th, on Saturday afternoon. And just like with all the other programs, he was going to come to speak here, but then because of the current situation, we canceled that and everything's online, but he will be speaking to us. He's been to Door County before. And it'll be an honor to have him speaking directly to us. The fun thing will be in the morning of the same day, Saturday, there's going to be a panel discussion of the firefighters of Northern Door. That should be really interesting to see what their experiences are. Because I once heard how Door County.
Who's on that panel? Do you know?
I'm not sure right off the top of my head, but I know they have.
Let's hope it's Chris. Let's hope it's Chris Hecht, because Chris Hecht embodies a lot of the things that. Well, Chris Hecht is just a hell of a good human being.
It says including Ann Jensen, Paul Swanson, Helen Hecht, Chris Hecht, Erica DeFair, Mark DeKaiser, and Richard Olson. Do you know anybody know those?
I think they're mostly Liberty Grove.
Yeah. That's where we were going to have the discussion up there, but then again, it's going to be online instead. But it'll be fun to hear what they have to say about that sort of life. I once heard a talk many years ago through Leadership Door County about how they had it organized for emergency people to meet the cars by the side of the road. They've really had to have some structure around here to cover the whole area with EMTs and fire people.
Mm.
Has anyone ever had to use that service?
Yes.
Yeah.
I've had to call that service in my job.
Oh,
And they're
yes.
incredible. They're
Mhm.
incredibly, I mean, I've had to use it for my job and I've had to use it for my restaurant. Both of my jobs, both at the visitor center and at my restaurant. And they're incredible. And they're people that you know. And they're people that it's just incredibly reassuring because they're, in my case, in the 2 times I've used it, as I'm the person who calls, I'm not the person who's injured, I'm the person who needs help. It's just been really reassuring to see people that I know and trust come and be incredibly professional. And Chris Hecht, you may know who he is, when he's the fire chief of Liberty Grove. When the Pioneer store had that explosion several
Oh,
years
yes.
ago,
Yeah.
and that whole end of the county was inundated with TV stations from everywhere. He stood in the middle of the road and said, "My name's Chris Hecht. I'm the fire chief. I have a lot to do, and when I have something to tell you, I'll tell you. But until then, please don't bother us."
Yeah.
And he also was the person that was largely responsible, with a lot of backup help from all of his volunteers and all of the fire departments up there. But there was a real need when the pandemic first hit in 2020 for food delivery, particularly to Scan,
Mhm.
and because they were locked down, and he totally spearheaded that. And it was, I just channeled a couple of things his way. That's all I did. Okay. But I mean, you would have thought I did the world for him. He kept calling me and saying thank you. I mean, I just think he's a hell of a human being. I think he's a lot. I think you'll be impressed with him.
Well, that's in the morning. Don't miss it. I think it's at, let's see.
It's at 10 o'clock, I think.
Yeah, I have it as 11 o'clock Saturday.
Okay,
And
sorry.
then Michael Perry's at 2 o'clock, and it's all online, so you know you shouldn't have to miss it at all. But I think that's one thing that impresses me about Michael Perry, and now we're sort of talking about population 485, but some of those experiences are just heart-rendering, you know, to see some of those people who are injured or have lifelong problems, and to have to deal with that as a volunteer is amazing. You know, I just have.
I don't know if, I think it was 2 weeks ago on Sunday morning, there was one of the segments was about a small town in uptown New York, in upstate New York, where due to the pandemic and coincidentally aging of a volunteer fire department, they didn't have EMTs. Seniors in high school volunteered to do it.
Wow.
And they have done it. And one of the things they asked him a couple of questions, and they said, "What's the hardest thing?" And one kid got very somber and said, "To have to tell a family member that someone has died. It's the hardest thing I've ever had to do." And then another thing that I thought was memorable was when they get there, people say to him, "When's the real ambulance going to get here?" And they're like, "It's here." But they've totally taken, it was a wonderful segment. And it also was wonderful, I thought, for me, it was wonderful because, you know, kids get a lot of times all we hear is about the bad things kids do these days. And this was wonderful to know that 15, 16, 17-year-olds were stepping up to the plate and doing this.
Yeah,
and without him, this whole area of upstate New York, which I think is probably very similar to Door County in terms of its, you know, wide open ruralness, so to speak, would not have had this kind of protection.
So that really brings in even though he's such a positive writer, there's so many really serious stories that he writes about. And even more so, of course, in population 485 than Truck. So.
He sure didn't make it a place that I'd like to drive a car around. Or an awful lot of accidents.
Well, we have our share up here, don't we? That's for sure.
I thought
Here's Adele coming back.
Poor Adele.
Or maybe it's another Adele, I don't know. Well, does anyone have any topics that you want to cover?
What was that, honey? Was it?
Espresso.
I do have, here's another quote. Perry writes, "It's so easy to get caught up in our brief little history. You forget sometimes what a disruption you are and how late you have entered the game. Have you ever felt like this?" What does he mean by what a disruption you are?
Adele.
Ruth,
Adele.
this is the third device I have tried.
Bingo.
Is it your connection or the device?
Or operator error, probably all of the above a little bit.
Okay.
Well,
Well,
good
we're
to see
glad
you
you're
here.
here.
When it's done.
Okay.
What was your
now-
opinion of the book, Adele?
Walk away.
Okay.
I enjoyed it. I could just envision some of the scenes, particularly in the garage working on the car and the hunting scene. And the fundraiser where they cook chicken at the firehouse. I could just envision all those scenes as good local Wisconsin lore.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Now, why am I not seeing, oh wait, let me see if I get a different, this is.
What?
This is modern life with all of this technology. And thank you all for working hard to try to do a group discussion. It's not always easy when it's like a little bit delayed here and there, but thanks for working at it. Does anyone know what he means by how you forget how you are a disruption? What does he mean by that? I don't quite understand that.
You
That
know
everyone-
where it is in the book? You know what page it's
Well,
on?
what, page 148? No, sorry. Page 184.
Oh, I'm not there yet. Hang on.
Well, I think if this is where, I don't know, but I'll try to make an analogy. When I was a classroom teacher and, primary, so we had our self-contained classroom. And then let's say in the spring, a new student comes in. It kind of, you welcome the new student and but it's just a change. There's a little bit of a disruption. Not, someone's coming in who's different, doesn't know as much, so to speak. That's the analogy I could make on it anyway.
Yeah, I think the context is he's coming in late to Annalisa's family story
Mhm.
with the previous husband and all that, and her parents, and all her friends and her support system, and he's the Johnny come lately. Or so he's hard on himself.
Well, and it's the same thing with the marriage for his family. I mean,
Yeah.
I felt so sorry for his brother losing his wife in the
Oh,
one
that
book.
was so sad.
Yeah.
And then his brother, his other brother, who finally got married, and he knew that he was going to get married because he had to build an addition of a bathroom, and because the wife would not be in the outhouse, she would not use an outhouse. Yeah.
Yeah.
I loved his little stories within the stories. His brother Jeb and the outhouse is one of them. And the Scandinavian stoicism, how he described that. I mean, I had to laugh because I lived that. Yeah.
Well, that's why I like Coop, because right away he starts in with that Norwegian farmer thing and starts talking about that.
Yeah.
The ethnicity. So I think Kagan's going to be giving a talk on ethnicity in next week. She's muted right now, but and I think he's like one of the keenest observers that I know. It's like, I can't imagine how he writes so much. He must be sitting around observing things constantly.
I don't think he sleeps.
And what?
He doesn't seem to sleep.
No. My sister's, sorry, go on, Ruth.
I think the quote about you sometimes forget how late you entered the game is in relationship to his entering into Annalisa's life when she's already been through this very, very hard time of having the child by herself. And he lists all the women who helped her. And it was women who stepped forward. I think there was one male, Ryan, but the others were the women who supported her through that very hard time in her life. And she went ahead and defended her master's thesis and did all of the things that she needed to do while she was also raising this child. And he feels like he's come in late to this. And what can he offer her that she didn't already have in her life?
That's a very good analysis.
I like that.
Yeah.
But don't you think he has a lot to offer her? Don't you think he's selling himself a little short and being too introspective? I mean, I think they have a lot to offer each other. And I think that, yes, he came into her life late, and I don't know. I just don't see anything.
I'm not worrying about that. He's worrying about that.
Well, and if you want, what?
He's hard on himself, which is that Scandinavian thing. You know, don't get a big head. I mean,
and in some of the interviews, he keeps saying he would hate to be too self-focused and build himself up and brag sort of in a way. He seems to constantly want to be down to earth and humble.
And it kind of goes back to what you said earlier, Laura, I guess. This goes back to what you said earlier, that he doesn't want to be a leader. He wants to be part of the team. And he doesn't want, and I just don't know how he doesn't just like look at himself and go, I'm pretty cool. Because I think he is. I mean, the man's in a band, the man has newspaper columns, the man, I mean, he's certainly lived up to what his father taught him. You have to have 3 things to make sure the bills get paid. He's got more than 3 things that he's successful at, but he is very humble. He is very humble because in the video, he talks about how, you know, he took the books around to malls and sat and tried to sell them, you know. And he's utterly amazed that he got on the New York Times bestseller list. So I guess humility is a strong suit of his, but I just think he could shed it a little bit. I think he could crow a little more.
Well, you know, and he also had his gratitude time, and I think that ties in with the humility, is that he would look at his daily life and be so grateful for who he is and in what place he was at.
And so much of this seems to come from his childhood and his parents, doesn't it? The way he turned out. Even though he doesn't follow the same religion as they do, he says a number of times, you can see how it's really influenced him. And living with all those different foster children, that partly makes you feel, I think, not like as if you have to be a team member, not a leader, but you have to help out. Like I grew up in a pretty big family, and you couldn't be the leader. Everyone was trying to be a leader, you could say, but you have to work as a team to some extent. And they sure had a lot of kids in that family. I don't know how they did it. And didn't he say his mother worked with him as an EMT or in the fire?
His mother was a nurse.
Yeah.
His mother was a nurse by profession.
Well,
but she was also on the EMT team.
Okay.
Yeah. And the way it really is worth watching that video Where I Come From, because he tells some really good stories there. And one of them is about, he tells about all his different teachers. The one that really stuck with me was when all the kids were picking on a girl in class, And then the teacher had the girl leave the room and then said to the kids, do you realize how mean you're being to her? I mean, that just struck me because I remember being part of the group that was making fun of people. Not that I meant to, but you know, sometimes we all do things that we regret later on. And he seemed to do a
I
lot of
found a comment interesting in the discussion afterwards of that video. Someone said they couldn't believe that he could name every single teacher he'd had.
Yeah.
And
I
he
think I
did.
can
He
name all my
did.
grade school teachers. I don't think I can name my junior high, high school teachers, but I can name all
He
my
did a
grade
pretty good.
school.
He did a pretty good job. He didn't name every high school teacher, but he did a pretty good job. People that definitely had an influence on him. And another thing that I thought was interesting from that video that he said was that he learned to read books because he could be in his own world because there were so many people around him all the time that books became a real special place for him.
Yeah, and also the way he described why he became a nurse. He said he was in the high school and the college recruiters were there and they had different career choices the kids were being offered. And he wasn't really paying attention, but then all of a sudden he went over there and he heard nurse. And of course he knew about nurses from his mother. So he said, well, I can do that. So he did it.
Yeah.
I thought that was great. And that's why he can switch around so easily. And what
He
skills
also
he learned.
paid for himself to go to school by working on a ranch in Wyoming,
Yeah.
to which I found that story, Laura, incredible. His father, who's got all these kids and all this responsibility, suddenly decides it's time for his 16-year-old to go to Wyoming. And it wasn't, I mean, it took a couple days to get there, and he obviously had connections, and they're there for a couple days, and the father says to him, well, what do you think? Would you like to stay? And
Yeah.
Perry's reaction is, well, will they let me? Will it work? You know, and the father has had it set up from the beginning. And Perry looks at him and goes, you've had this set up from the beginning, haven't you? He said, yes, you'll be fine. And he
So,
leaves
yeah.
him and goes home.
You
You
just
know,
keep
and-
seeing how the parents have influenced everything that he is today. That's what I keep seeing. And,
Right.
you know,
But he does that for like 4 or 5 years. And then he goes to nursing school. He pays for it.
yeah.
You know,
And one thing I read that his parents don't really like to be the focus of anything. Can you imagine being in his family? Can you can you imagine being in his community and he's
That's right.
writing about you all the time?
I can remember in the other book, in the population book, when he wrote about his brother and his sister-in-law dying in that car accident. He asked his brother if it was okay to publish that, to write that before he put it in there.
Yeah.
He said, yeah, but I'm not going to read it.
Yeah. I think he indicated that he always clears it with people, but
Yeah.
he does say in one of the prologues of one of the books or something that he changes names and adjusts things too.
Sometimes.
But still, if he were around, you know, I'd be kind of suspicious around him, what he's going to write about next.
He doesn't
But who
usually
knows?
say anything bad about people.
No, that's true. That's the saving grace of it. But
I mean, I don't think.
you don't think?
I don't
What?
think he named the name of the lady that was stuck in the bathroom between the toilet and the shower, did he?
but if you lived in New Auburn, you know.
You would
who-
probably know. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, he does say that he changes names to protect people. But as you say, if you live there, you know who it is. So it's all pretty funny.
It is.
Well, we're coming
I
up
hope
in
they
an
think
hour.
it's funny too.
We're coming up on an hour. Does anyone have any subject you want to cover before we end? Are you going to go to any of the other book discussions?
I went to one this morning.
I'm going
Did
to
you?
try.
And was it truck again, or was it
Well,
population.
it was basically population this morning, but we did touch on truck a little bit.
Well, how can you not, right? All
Right.
this-
There,
And I did the audiobook of Population 485, I think it was, and they start out there doing stories from other books,
oh,
you know, so they include those. So all of his stories are good, one way or another. And I hope you will be able to join us for many of the other programs, and especially to hear him on Saturday.
Mhm.
Well, thank you for coming.
No, thank you, Laura.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye,
Laura.
everybody. Nice to see you. Take care.
Thank you.
And,
Bye.
and,
Bye-bye.
and Multicultural Book Group will meet again. Everyone's welcome in March, the first Tuesday in March.
Mhm.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Laura.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
Laura. Thank you.
Bye.